Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Lamed Gimel in Bab Mציעא. We learn for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael and Masum Batzar V'Shivya. Says the Mishnah. Let's say you've lost an item and your father has lost an item. Which takes precedence? Where should you spend your time first, trying to find it? Avidosa Kedemus. You have to take care of his first. You have to give respect to your father. I'm sorry. Avidosa Kedemus, your own rather. Avidosa your Aveda and that of your father. You might say, well, but your own money comes first. You got to take care of your own money. So we'll see in the Gemara. The Gemara will explain this, but don't go too far. Meaning, you have an obligation first for your own assets, then for that of your father. I'm not talking about respect that we were talking about financial, right? Financially, you should take care of yourself first. You should look for yours first before you look for your father's. Rabo. Let's say you're a Veda or the Veda of your teacher, your Rebbe. Again, Shalom Kodem, yours comes first. When it comes to money matters, you have an obligation to take care of yourself first. Your first priority should be your own family, your own assets. Avedas of Avedas Rabo. Let's say it's a choice of helping your father with his lost item or your Rebbe. So Rabo Kodemus, your teacher, your Rebbe, who taught you Torah, comes first. You should take care of your father brought you into this world physically. Rabo Shalom the Chachma, your Rebbe who taught you Chachma is Torah, bring you to Olam Haba. Here Rashi says, this is not really the Rashi yet, because the Rashi is going on, there's not really Rashi on these words. We'll see what Chachma means. Chachma means Torah, but obviously it's not your Rebbe who taught you science or geography. It's the one who taught you Torah. He brings you to Olam Haba, so he takes a precedence. Olam Haba takes precedence over Olam Zevim. Aviv Chacham. If your father's also a Talmud Chacham, the Girsi says in the side, he says, Shokol Kana Rabba, if your father is equal to your Rebbe in Torah, then Shalav of Kodevis, because he's got both aspects. He brought you into this world and to the next world. Hayav Rabba knows the master. Let's say your father and your Rebbe were both carrying a heavy load and they needed help. You first help your Rebbe and then your father. Again, your Rebbe takes precedence over your father unless your father was also your Rebbe, also taught you Torah. Let's say they were both kidnapped. Both your father and your Rebbe were both in captivity. Podas Rabbo, you first redeem your Rebbe, Vachkach Podas Av, then your father. Im Aviv Chacham, again, if your father was a Talmud Chacham, Podas Aviv, because your father has both aspects. He's both your father and he's your Rebbe. Vachkach Podas Av, and then you teach your Rebbe, then you redeem your Rebbe. No, I mean, how do we know this first idea? The very beginning of the Mishnah said that your lost item, in other words, your financial well-being comes before that of your father or of your Rebbe. Amar B'Yom Rav, we quoted this the other day. Amar because there will never be it'll never be a situation where there won't be poor people among you. And as the Pashup Shot was talking about, there'll always be poor people, so you should always help them. But he darshans it. In other words, you shouldn't make yourself poor to help somebody else. Your financial well-being takes precedence over somebody else's. Now, even though Rabbi Yehuda Rav himself said this in the name of Rabbi Yehuda Rav, but he still said, "Kol makayim ba'atzmo." But if you take this too far, "Kol makayim ba'atzmo kach," if that's how you always treat yourself, that you always take care of your needs and don't take care of others, self boli tekach. At the end, you yourself will be poor. And here's what Rashi says, that take a look at Rashi right where the lines get narrow. Even though the pasuk did not, the Torah did not make you responsible to take care of other people's assets before yours, sometimes you should go beyond the letter of the law. You shouldn't be always mocked, well, I got to take care of my own first. If it's not a clear loss. In other words, you're not responsible to take a clear loss to help somebody else. Like we said the other day, if you're earning $1,000 an hour, you're not obligated to spend that hour picking up somebody's $5 or $10 item. So that's a clear loss. You shouldn't do that. But if you're always saying, oh, I don't care about somebody else, I'm always going to take care of myself first, then you throw away the obligation of doing acts of kindness and charity. Then you yourself will be poor. So Rabbi Yehuda Rav himself, who said, don't make yourself poor to help other people, but don't take it too far. He himself said that. They're both carrying items, who do you help first? So he said you help your Rebbe first, unless your father was also your Rebbe. Tan Rabbanim. Rabo Sha'amru, when we talk about your Rebbe, your teacher, Rabo, your master, Sha'amru, so we have different opinions over here. What do you mean? What did he teach you? We know it means Torah, but what? So talking about Rabbi Sha'amru, Rabbi Shalom do Chachma, Tanam Chachma. Now what is that? What is Rabbi Shalom Chachma? So Rashi tells us that it really means Gemara. Take a look at Rashi, right after where we left off in Rashi before, right above that, go Sabach on the side. Shalom Chachma, Sfaras Tamei Mishnah, the understanding, the reasoning behind the Mishnah. We have two different apparent contradictions between different Mishnahs. How do you explain them? You have to understand the reasoning. The Tami Yisrael, to the reasons why this is also and that's mutter, why one is obligated and one is one is not obligated. One is patur from whatever one guy's chayv, one guy's patur, one guy is responsible, one guy is not responsible. He's absolved. V'hu nikra Gemara. That's what Gemara is. Gemara is when you understand the reasonings. You have the Gemara, you have the Mishnah, you have the Gemara. Like we have after Mishnah, you have Gemara. The Gemara explains all the reasoning. So he says that when we talk about your Rebbe, we mean the Rebbe who taught you Gemara. V'lo Rabba says back in the Gemara. V'lo Rabba shows the Mikra Mishnah. We're not talking about your Rebbe who taught you how to Chumash or Mishnayos. Divrei Rav Meir. So Rav Meir says it's got to be. We're talking about Gemara. Rav Yudamer Kosh Rav Chachma Samenu. Doesn't make any difference what his Chachma was, but if most of your Chachma that you know came from him, no matter what it was, Rashi says in Mikra, Mishnah, Migmar, whatever it was, most of the Torah that you know came from this rabbi. Most of it. That's the Rebbe that we're referring to. Whatever he taught you, if all you know is Chumash or all you know is Mishnah, that he's the one who taught you most of that. That's the Rebbe that you have to give this respect to that we mentioned on Mishnah. Yossi Omer, almost everybody's a Rebbe, even if he only taught you, he gave you to understand the meaning of one Mishnah. Zeh Rabo. If he taught you just one thing, that one Mishnah that you didn't know the reason for this Mishnah, that's also your Rebbe. Almost everybody that you learn with is your Rebbe. Amar Rav Rabbi says, "Kegon Rav Schora, the Asbran Zum Elistrom." The Gemara, that's a Mishnah in Kalim that talks about Tuma and Tara, and it says over there Zuam Elistrom. What is Zuam Elistrom? So it's really like a soup ladle that removes the zoham, the scum, from the top of the soup, from the top of the whatever you're cooking over there. So he didn't know what that was, and he told him that's what it was. That listron means it's a kind of a soup ladle that's made to remove the scum, the froth at the top of the soup. Shmuel Kara Mane Shmuel even tore his garment, meaning he was knowing avelis. He was knowing bereavement over a rabbi, the Asbra, who only explained to him one thing. This is in Mesechta Talmud. It talks about the first Kohen who of the day who was zocha to remove the ashes from the mizbeach. So what would he do? It says over there there were two keys that he went in with first thing in the morning. The one key went down la'amas hashechi to his armpit. Now what does that mean? Amas hashechi is from echad pasech kevan, and one opens directly. What are we talking about? To open the doors in the morning, there were a little small door, a little duct in the doors of the heichal, and one he would open the first one and stick his hand all the way down to his armpit to unlock that. That would unlock one door. Then he'd be able to go in and open the other door directly. So he says, what were the two keys for? One was for opening up the duct where he sticks his hand down all the way, and one, Pesach Kefan. So that Rebbe explained to him what it means. What are these two? What does that mean? The key of your armpit and the other one directly. What does that mean? So he explained that to him, and Shmuel learned that from this rabbi. That's all he learned from him, and because of that, he was noeg avelus when his Rebbe died. He was noeg avelus.
What was the historian? What was the linguist?
Yeah, right. So whatever it was, whatever he taught him it's all Torah. That's the one. It's all Torah. Amarula. Talmidei Chacham Shabbav Lamdim Zevefnei Zev. Talmidei Chacham Babel who learn with one another. They discuss things in the yeshivas. And it's like all chavrusas. They stand before one another, and as they give each other the same respect, meaning that like a Talmud in front of his Rebbe, they stand up. When one comes in, the other one stands up. They give each other respect, even though they're all learning together. And if one dies, they tear kriya one upon the other, which is the right thing to do. If that's your Rebbe dies, people tear kriya. Right? What about where his father lost an item, and we said in the Mishnah, and your Rebbe lost an item, Ein chosren el rabo mubak. Okay, what do you go back for? Meaning, what do you look for? When do you treat? We said in our Mishnah that if your father lost an item and your Rebbe lost an item, whose precedence? If it's your own item, that comes first. But if it's a Vedas Rabo, Sharabo Kodemus, right? He said, because your Rebbe brought you into will bring you into the next world. He says that's only for your Rabba Mubak, for your expert, your special Rebbe that you learn from the most, your Rabba Mubak, your particular Rebbe par excellence. That's the Ein Chosren El Rabba Mubak. That's where do we say that the Rebbe takes precedence? That's only you go back and look from only if he's Rabba Mubak. Kabbamin Rav Chisda Rav Huna. Now Rav Chisda asked the kasha of Rav Huna. Rav Huna was his Rebbe, and he asked him, Talmud v'tzarch l'Rabba Mai. What happens if he's your Rebbe, and you're the Talmud, but your Rebbe needs you too? Now, why does that? Rashi explains that sometimes the Talmud learns in different yeshivas. He learns from different rabbis, and the rabbi, his own rabbi, learns things from him that he picked up in other yeshivas. So Rav Chisda asked Rav Huna, what happens if he's your Rebbe, if you're a Talmud of this Rebbe, but your Rebbe needs you too? Now, Rav Huna was offended by the question. He said, so that was a question. Talmud b'tzarch l'Rabbo, his Rebbe needs him. What's the halacha there? Does it also consider like the Rebbe takes precedence over his father? Amalei, chista chista. Oh, that's you're referring to me and you, that I need you. Lo tzarich l'cha, I don't need you. Atzrichasli, you need me. And they had a little discussion over there, meaning Rav Huna suspected that Rav Chisda was talking about themselves. What about like me and you, where you're my Rebbe, but you really need me too? And Rav Huna said, "Oh, you think I need you? You need me. I don't need you." So they had a little bit of a dispute there. For 40 years, they were upset. They were like fighting. They had a fight for 40 years. They didn't meet with one another. They didn't visit one another. Yes, Rav Chisda, but then in order to atone for this, Rav Chisda sat for 40 fasts, mishum decholish daited Rav Huna, because he had made Rav Huna feel bad by his very question. The question had made Rav Huna depressed. And Yasser Rav Huna bar Tanais, and Rav Huna himself said 40 Tanaisim mishum dechash Rav Chisda, because he suspected Rav Chisda of putting him down. He didn't mean maybe to put him down, but he suspected him of that, and therefore Rav Huna and Rav Chisda both took it upon themselves to fast 40 fasts to atone for their perceived infraction. Itmar, Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef Amar Rabbi Yochanan Loch Rabbi Yehuda. We had a 3 machlokas before. When we say that your Rebbe takes precedence over your father when it comes to a lost item or removing his load, that kind of a thing, or if they were in jail or if they were taken in captivity, who do you have to get first? Which Rebbe do we mean? So the Tanakama that Rav Meir said, it means Gemara. We taught him Gemara, not just in the Chumash or Mishnah. Rav Yehuda said, wherever your Rov Chachma was from, whatever your Chachma that you have, whatever is from. Rav Yosef says, even if you taught you one item, that's good enough. So Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef said in Rav Yochanan, like Rav Yehuda, that it's got to be Rov Chachmaso. Ravacha bar Rav Huna, Amar Rav Sheish Zalch Rav Yosef, like Rav Yosef, even if taught him one halacha. Says the Gemara, Rav Yochanan really said halacha like Rav Yehuda has to be Rov Chachmaso. Rav Yochanan halacha stam Mishnah. Rav Yochanan is a general rule throughout Shas. Halacha is like a stam Mishnah. And what did our Mishnah say? Our Mishnah says, "V'Rabbu Shalom do Chachma." Chachma sounds like Gemara, right? Isn't that what it sounds like? It means halacha stam Mishnah. V'tam Rabbu Shalom do Chachma. We're assumed Chachma, like we explained before, like Rashi explained before, that Chachma is Gemara. Tam Rabbu Shalom Chachma, Stamik Rav Meir. So the Gemara says, no, my Chachma Rav Chachma. When the Mishnah says Chachma, Stam, it could also mean like Rav Yehuda's of Rav Chachma. So Rav Meir, Einachanami, or the Tanakama, it's Rav Meir. Rav Meir says it's got to be Gemara. But that's how he learned. And it's Stam Mishnahs like him. But Rav Yehuda could say, no, when the Mishnah said Rav Chachma, Chachma means Rav Chachma. Even though Stam Mishnah is Rav Meir, but it could be this case. It's not. The halacha is like a Stam Mishnah, but it's not always that it's Rav Meir who is the author of the Stam Mishnah. Could be that it's not Rav Meir. Maybe this is a Rebbe left at Stam. Obviously, it's not Rav Meir. If it is Rav Meir, it wouldn't fit. If it is Rav Meir, it would go. Rav Meir could go l'shitaso that Chachma means Gemara. But how would Rav Yehuda explain that? If Rav Yehuda, we said Rav Yehuda's kosher of Chachma so amenu, and Rabbi Yochanan says halachas like Rav Yehuda, and he also says halachas like our Mishnah. he learns that the Mishnah will be Rav Yehuda and not Rav Meir. Tanabanan, 4 lines from the bottom of the page in the Gemara. Ha'oskim b'mikra mitav. If you learn just Chumash, it's a nice measure, but it's nothing to write home about. Nothing great, right? Because the Mishnah and Gemara is much more deeper, it gives you more understanding. So if you just learn Chumash, it's a midah v'ein a midah. It's not anything a Mishnah. If you learn Mishnayos, that's a midah that's a better measure. But you get schar for that. Gemara, if you learn Gemara, there's no measure greater than that. Gemara is the top of the line. But still, you should run to learn the Mishnah more than the Gemara. Now, how does that work? It says Gemara Gufakasha. This seems to be a self-contradiction. On the one hand, you say that if you learn Gemara, there's no greater measure than that. That's the top of the line. Then you said, but then it says you should run to learn Mishnah more than the Gemara. So what does it mean by that? What do we mean by that? And what is Gemara? Rashi again emphasizes not only the Rashi we learned before, that it says Vahu Nikra Gemara at the beginning, even with Agos Agra, but 2 lines from the bottom of the page in Rashi also, Rashi goes on to emphasize that again. What is Gemara? Kvar Pi Rashti Lamala, Shu Losis Lev, to give it understand, Lahav and Stimos to understand the things that are hidden. Tami Mishnah, the reasons for the Mishnah, Mahim, Ukshashtayim, Sosuzu, when 2 Mishnayos contradict one another. Yavan Lataretz, you should try to understand, to explain that Yav Shem Kayamos, Oladas Divrei, Atanoa, Machalukim Medavar. Maybe you can understand the Mishnayos or they're contradicting one another because they're authored by 2 different people. B'nei Mahamani Ploni Chacham, it goes according to this one. So that's what the Gemara is. So he says on the one hand, he says Gemara is the top of the line. Then he says you should always run from Mishnah more than Gemara. What do you mean by that? Rabbi Yochanan said, "B'mei Rebbe Nishnas Mishnah." Rebbe taught this idea that Gemara is the top of the line. That was this price that it says that if you learn Chumash, that's okay. If you learn Mishnah, that's better. If you learn Gemara, top of the line. Why? Rebbe Nishmas. What happened? Why? Rashi explains that before Rebbe, a few generations before Rebbe, we had the Talmidim of Shammai Beisil started fighting about everything because they were under a lot of pressure from the Romans, from the government, and people didn't have a mind to think, and it was very hard for them to think and concentrate because they were constantly under physical pressure and physical and psychological pressure, and nothing was written down. Those days, Gemara wasn't written down. It's Torah Shabbat, you weren't allowed to write it down until later on. The rabbi said everything, we're starting to forget things. So there was a lot of fights and a lot of arguments, and people didn't know. And just learning a Mishnah wouldn't tell you anything because you didn't know this one said this one, this Rebbe learned it in this yeshiva this way, this guy learned it in that way. So Rebbe taught, he says, listen, you got to learn the Gemara because we have to concentrate on the Gemara because there's so many fights and disagreements. You can't understand the Mishnahs unless you understand all these different arguments. So Rebbe taught that. Shafka Kula Alma Masti. Since everybody stopped learning Mishnahs, Basal Gemara. Rebbe said you got to learn Gemara. Hadar Darshlu Ulam Abras the Mishnah Yosem Gemara. Why? But afterwards he said, look, then they started learning the Gemara and they forgot what was in the Mishnah. In other words, they spent all their time learning Gemara and they forgot Machlokas Rav Meir, Rav Yehuda, Rav Shimon, who said what? They forgot the Mishnayos. So he says, you know what? Go back and learn the Mishnah too. Yes, you have to learn Gemara, but you have to know what's written in the Mishnah too. My Darsh, what was the Darsh? Well, how did they darshan when he said what drashan did they darshan Rebbe to what the Rebbe did they say concentrate on learning Gemara? Kadash Rav Yehuda Rav Eloi, who is the Stam Rav Yehuda in the Mishnah. Rav Yehuda Rav Eloi, Midas the pasuk says, Hagela mi pesham, tell my nation their sin, ulebeis Yaakov chatasam, and tell Beis Yaakov their sin. What does that mean? Hagela mi pesham, tell my nation their iniquity, their peshes like a mazid. When they make a mistake, they have a responsibility to learn the Gemara, to understand the Mishnayos properly, who said what's the reason behind it. If they don't understand the right reason, they'll paskin wrong. So if they make a mistake, it's like a zadon, it's like their fault. That's what it means, pesha is like a zadon, like an intentional sin. They did it on purpose. So even though they made a mistake, but they had an obligation to learn it properly. If they made a mistake, it's because they didn't learn properly, and therefore it's like they sinned on purpose. Well, the Beis Yaakov, that's the general population. Chatasam, Elamar, Samaratzim, Shizdonos, even if they did it on purpose, it's like something they did inadvertently because they don't understand the halacha. They don't know, and they're only following what the Talmud Chacham taught them. I knew the Tanan, and this fits in with what we learned in the Mishnah. Rav Yehuda Omer, Avezor b'Talmud. Be careful when you learn the Talmud, meaning the Gemara, to understand the reason. Sheshigas Talmud o lazadon. You make a mistake, it's considered like an intentional mistake. because when you learn the wrong reason and you paskin that way, you're going to cause other people to sin. So your mistake, it's your fault that you made the mistake. Yes, it's a mistake, but it's your own fault for not understanding. Mind if Siv, Shimu Dvar Hashem, Pasuk in Yeshaya. Shimu, listen to the word of God, Achareidim El Dibro, the ones who fear his word. What do we mean by that? Achareidim El Dibro, El Tamid Chachamim. Then it says, Amru Achechem, and it says, when all you Jewish people were fighting, your brothers, Elabali Mikra, the people in Chumash. In other words, people Chumash resent the people in Gemara. So Nechem, those who hate you, Elabali Mishnah. Again, there was always this rivalry between those who spent their time learning Mishnah versus those who learned Gemara. Menadechem, those who put you out, who throw you out. Elu Ameoretz. Those are the ignoramuses. That they're very resentful of the Talmidei Chachamim, right? They put you, cause you to leave. Maybe you'll say, well, their hope and their prospects will end, and their prospects will be voided because there's always going to fight and they'll never come to peace with one another. We will see your joy, meaning that things will work out better at the end. You think that everybody thinks they're in charge and that God likes them more because of their learning. But the Navi said, we will see, everybody will see that you'll all be happy together. Shematami Yisrael Yivoshu. The end of the pasuk is Yivoshu, that Yisrael is the one who's embarrassed. Hamalomer Vahemi Yivoshu. Avicham Yivoshu, but Yisrael Yismachu. Avicham will be embarrassed and will be ashamed, and not the Jews. Rashi says near the end of the parak there, I will see. We will all see the happiness, the joy together of the Tmincham. They will be embarrassed for Yisrael Yismachu. That's how the pasuk ends off nicely, and that's how the parak ends off nicely. Just wanted to point out, yesterday at the end of the Shiur, Michael asked, we were talking about Tzar Balachayim, and we didn't have really a solid proof. We had Rav Shapiro who said Tzar Balachayim is not Doraisa, it's only Drabanan. And we brought several proofs, but we said you could discount those proofs. So we didn't really have a clear proof. But what was our source for Tzar Balachayim? So because it says, if your animal is under, if you see somebody's animal, even the one your hated enemy, you see him struggling under or lying on the ground under a load, you have to help him unload. Oh, so it must be because of Tzar Balachayim is Doraisa. It could be it's Rabbanan, right? But it wasn't clear. So he said you can bring a proof one way, you can bring another proof another way. If you say you have to deal with a goyish animal too, why would an animal belong to a goy? Must be Tzar Balachayim is Doraisa. Tzar Balachayim is not Doraisa. Why do you have to handle it like a Zeros Ligmar? Okay, because of Ava, because of whatever, all the reasons. What about Michael asked about the fact that Lo Sachsam Sor B'Disho. You're not to them. So I said, well, it's psychological, but the truth is that's also a source of Tzar Balachayim Doraisa. In other words, there's no clear pasuk. It's not one of the Taryag mitzvos that you're not allowed to cause your animal any harm. However, you see from this pasuk that we talked about yesterday, about an animal lying under its burden, or is lying on the ground and struggling under its burden. And there were other proofs. Rav Asher said that other Rishon, for example, you asked about Tasasam Shabbatisho. That's also a pasuk. I think it was the Shitim Gebetza says that from Lo Sachsham Shabbatisho, Lo Litzaras Ashor, Aydeminias Achasham. Others bring also from Lo Sachsh B'Shor V'Chamor Yachto, because when an animal is plowing under the same yoke with another species of animal, that upsets him too. So that's also a source. Another source is, what did the Malach tell Bilam? Lama hikisa es chamorcha zeh shalosh pamim, right? Why did you hit your animal? You're not supposed to hit animals. Not a good idea to hit animals. What about Aver Menachai? Why is Aver Menachai? You're causing pain. Taking a chunk out of a live animal, also it's based on that. Not to shecht a shore and its child the same day, cause distress. If one doesn't know about the other, one thing, but could cause distress. All these are sources for the concept of Tzar Balachayim.
I think you could be the doctor that never mentions cats.
Yeah. I think there's enough sources that, I've thought about those cats many times, but it's still Tzar Balachayim, as much as they cause,
DNA for cats?
I assume don't all animals have a DNA?
Somebody
Yeah,
figured out.
we're not done. We're not done.
Oh.
Yeah.
Somebody
Somebody figured out what?
Some entrepreneur figured out that the use for cat DNA. Why would there be such a use? It turns out that if you know the DNA of the cat, you can feed it properly.
Oh.
Nutrition.
Uh-huh.
You extend the life of a cat from 5 years to about 10 to 20 years.
Really? I must let my neighbors know because I see them giving cats cholent and kishka and things like that. I don't know if that helps them, All right, that ends the first paragraph. Begin the second paragraph. Now, shomer. Then we're talking about shomer. We know there's 4 kinds of shomer. There's a shomer chinam, where you're asked to watch something for somebody, hold something for somebody. We'll give an example of, let's say, Reuven and Shimon, or mafkid and a nifgad. The mafkid is the baler, the one who deposits something, and the depositee, the bailee, is the one who receives it, who's holding it. He's only responsible for negligence if he's not paid, and he's not to use the item. Just watch this for me. It's a shamachinam. He's only responsible for negligence. If it's lost or stolen, not responsible. Not responsible. Let's say it's stolen, it's nignab, and then afterwards they find the ganef. He's got to pay double, right? If he doesn't admit, and they get him with Adam, he's got to pay double. That's who does he pay double to? To the owner, because the shomer could have sworn and said, I wasn't negligent, and that's it, and he's off the hook. He's out of the picture. What happens if he takes responsibility? That's what we're going to deal with right now. In the case of a shamachin, it's a chaber behem okelim. You gave a person, Reuben gave Shimon, let's say, Mafki gave the nifkat something to wash, an animal or vessels, whatever, inanimate objects. The nignu owner, let's say they were actually stolen or lost. Nignav here means nignav with a burglar who has to pay double if he's caught. The nignav shavdu. Shimon, but let's say the shomer chinam. The shomer chinam can go off the hook by saying they were stolen. He's not responsible. All he has to do is say, I swear that I wasn't negligent. They were stolen in the middle of the night. It was beyond my responsibility. But let's say he says, I don't want to do that. I don't feel comfortable, so I'll pay for it. I'll pay for it. Okay, he pays for it. So now, who's off the hook? The owner's off the hook. He got paid for his item. Who's on the hook now? The shomer. The shomer said, effectively, the shomer is acquired. Now what happens? He paid for it. He didn't want to swear. If he wanted to, he could have sworn and been off the hook. But now, he found the ganef subsequently. Misham pays kefil. Who does he pay kefil to? So, right? Or let's say not only did he burgle it, but he also slaughtered or sold it, where you pay dal v'hei, depending if it's a seh or shor. Misham tashlum yaber chamisha. Lemi misham lemisha b'kodnetzlo. He pays it to the nifgad, the shomer, because the shomer is acquired it effectively by paying for it. So now it's his. Now, if he find the ganef has to pay to the shomer. That's what the Mishnah says. The Gemara will say it's not so simple, though. Not so simple. Because how did he acquire it? Did he acquire the animal? Did he acquire the kli? So how did he get it? That's what the Gemara is going to deal with. But first I understand is that he gave that effectively the shomer, by taking responsibility, Gemara is going to come out and say that there was an implicit understanding. When I gave you the shomer, I'm the mafkin, I gave it to you to watch. And it was an implicit understanding that if you take responsibility for it so much that you're not even going to swear you'll pay for it, then I'm giving it to you right now. Then it's yours, effectively. Nishba below Ras Lashon. But let's say the other way around. Let's say the shomer chinam did his job. He says, I wasn't negligent. It was stolen from me, not my fault, and I swore, and he's out of the picture. Now you find the ganef. Who does the ganef pay the kefil to? To the owner. Right? There's doesn't seem to be any chiddush in that, right? It's obvious. It belongs to the owner. The shomer swore, he's out of the picture. So the Gemara in Baba Kama, the Gemara says over there, the chiddush is that if after he swore, he still paid for it. The shomer chinam swore, I wasn't negligent, but then he felt bad and he paid for it. He could still acquire it then. It would still, the kefil would go to him. It says only nishba below ratza l'shalim. If he swore in him, let's say he swore and he paid, then the owner wouldn't get it. The kefil would go to the shomer. So the Gemara says first, why do you have to say behema and kalim? Say Gave him an item. I gave you to wash. What's that? I gave you my car. I gave you my shovel. What is it? I gave you my animal or the kalim. Why both? So we'll see, because again, the owner effectively gave the shomer the rights, the ownership of the item, with the if the shomer was going to take full responsibility and pay for it. It's understanding up front. Why do you have to have both? It's strictly both. If you don't have him, you know why I'll give the shomer the kefil. A lot of work involved in taking care of an animal. If you give me an item, I just say, okay, put it over there. It's in my house. An animal, I got to take it. I got to feed it, take it out there with a bag and all that. You got to watch your dog. It's not a simple thing. You got to take it out and in, take it in, take it into the house, out of the house. Not a lot of work involved there. I'm not going to give you the kefil. It's you didn't have to do anything for it. Why should I? Again, what do you mean giving him the kefil? He's giving him the ownership of the item so that he would get the kefil if it's stolen and the ganaf is found. So okay, if you take care of my dog, fine, and it's lost or stolen, and you pay for it, fine, you can keep the kefil, right? Because there's a lot of work involved. But for a clean-up biton of kalim, if you tell him, I made a kalim with a where would I give you the kefil? In the case of kalim, because the kefil cannot be multiplied, meaning a kli cannot get 4 or 5. When do you get 4 or 5? If the guy stole it and then he shechted or stole it, but that's only on a shore or set. It doesn't work on inanimate objects. Okay, so there I give you the kefil. It's only going to, your chances of making a lot of money over here, of doubling your what you paid for, is only if it's an inanimate object. If I give my animal, you have a chance to earn 4 or 5 times that. If it's lost or stolen from you, and you find the guy, and he had shechted it or sold it, and you took responsibility by paying for it, you're going to make a lot of money over here 4 or 5 times. I'm not going to give you the kefil, and you don't get the kefil, you won't get the dalveh either. Right.
Your expenses might exceed the kefil.
Okay, so obviously in a case like that, your expenses will be covered by the mafkid. The guy gave you just here's my dog, and here's the food for it, and here are the bags to pick up his excrement, and I'm giving you all the stuff that you have to do. Obviously, you have to take him to the vet. Here's the money to pay for the veterinarian. Obviously those things are covered. We're talking about if it's lost or stolen. Where's my dog? I swear I wasn't, I wasn't negligent, but I'm going to pay for it anyway. Oh, if you were going to pay for it anyway, then there's an understanding that if you find the item is lost and you find that it belongs to you because you paid for it, right? It's like you say you paid for it, you bought it. You broke it, you bought it. You paid for it, it's yours. But also the big thing is you're going to get the kefil or the dal hay. But why? The Gemara is going to say, how did he acquire it? So we understand now why it's a kalim and dal. You might think, okay, in the case of kalim, I would you get kefil, but you didn't have to do anything. You just sat there. Fine. Finishes, you get kefil there too. And the chiddush is by the other way. You might say kalim, okay, you give it to him because it's kefil, but my dog, if you steal my shor oseh, if my shor oseh is lost or stolen, and you find the ganaf, and you might get up to dal hey, I'm not going to give you that much. I didn't really mean to give you the kefil there. If there's no kefil, there's no dal because there's no gimel v'dal. We saw in Baba Kama. So therefore, he tells you both cases. But the question is, how did he acquire it? After it's lost or stolen, how does he get the kefil? He gets he says, you paid for it. Logically, we understand you paid for it, so you're entitled to whatever we gained afterwards, right? Whatever gain comes afterwards. But where's the kinyan? The thing is lost now. What are you buying? You're giving me money for what? So what am I giving you? I'm giving you, it's not here yet. There's no kefil yet. It hasn't been stolen. When I gave you the animal to watch, right? I gave it to you. You pulled the animal, right? So what do you you didn't acquire it at that point, we're assuming now. Later on, after it was stolen, and you paid for it, so you paid for it, you gave me cash, but where's the kinyan? The animal's not here now. Even according to Meir, you could make honey milk to go and pay or stekel. Also, you can get the fruits of a tree. I can sell you the fruits of the tree that are going to grow later on this season because we know fruits are going to come. So there's something that's obviously going to come. But over here, when I gave you the animal to watch, who says it's going to be stolen by a ganaf, not by a gazlan? And if it is stolen, how are you going to find the ganaf to pay? Who's going to pay the double? Even if you find the ganaf, how do you know he'll pay double? maybe he'll be motor right away. Motor b'knasas part, you won't have to pay. So how do we know that? It's not something that's going to happen. Why did you have Amrava Nasik Omer? It's as if he said to him, when it'll be stolen, and when giving this item, and you're going to just guard it for me and give it back to me when I get home from my vacation. But if it's stolen and you will pay for it, I'm giving it to you right now. So effectively, I made the kinyan when the animal was there. When I gave you the item to watch, I said effectively, if you're going to watch this item for me, if it's stolen and you agree to pay for it, then I'm giving it to you from right now. So he made a kinyan right now. And if he made a kinyan right now, he acquired it at that point. It wasn't Davar Shalom. Masker of Zera, if that's the case, if he acquired it from right now, from the time that he handed it over to him, he should also acquire the shearings, the fleece, and the animals that it gave birth to. Let's say I gave you a cow, right, to watch, and it was stolen, right? The halacha is that says that you don't get the Gemara. Time we learn in the Brisa, he acquires the kefil and the item, but he doesn't get the fleece or the groats, whatever, or the vlad. And according to what you're saying, he should acquire it. If he acquired the animal retroactively at the time that he gave it to him, he should own everything that the animal had. He says, okay, it means I'm giving it to you, except with the exception of the gizos, except for the shearings, the fleece, and the vlad. So my piska. So how would you know that? Like, how is that a definite thing? You know, that I'm giving it to you retroactively, except for those things. Is that obvious? It says stamina milsa in a regular case. I'll give you the things that I'm not anticipating, like the kefil or the dalbeh that's coming from other sources, not from me. I'm not going to give you things that came out of the goof of the animal, like it's lambs or whatever it is. It's lambs or it's calves or whatever. I'm not going to give the babies. I'm expecting it's going to have babies. That I'm not giving you. I'm not giving you the babies and the fleece and the hair that it grows or whatever. Things that come from else, I'm giving him. All right, that's a little bit of a dochik. You get me? Some say, Amarava, you didn't say I'm giving it to you retroactively from the time I gave it to you. Nasika Omerlo, it's like he told them, Likshetignim, when it'll be stolen, the tears of its and you'll agree to pay me. You're making a kinyan right now. I'm giving it to you when it's in your house. You'll acquire it right before the Gnedi. See, our issue was, once it's stolen, how do you acquire it? How do you make a kinyan to get the kefil? So he says, okay, we said retroactively from the time that I gave it to you to watch, you acquire it there. But if I gave it to you from the time at that time, you should acquire also the babies and the fleece, etc., that it had, and you don't get that. So he says, no, if you'll agree to pay me after it's stolen, you'll agree not to. You don't want to swear. You just want to. You'll pay me for it. Then you acquire it right before it was stolen. From that point, from what was in your house. My binah, what's these two reasonings? If it was from the time I gave it to you, handed it over to you from the time that right before it was stolen, we don't have Rav Zera's problem, because Rav Zera said, since you don't get the gizos and the blodos, how did I acquire it? The answer is the gizos and the blodos that had while you were taking care of it, right, your baby, those still belong to the owner. I'm saying I'm giving it to you in the second answer. He says, I'm giving it to you when you're acquiring it, right before it was stolen, after it gave birth and after the fleece and all that, right before it was stolen, you're only getting it from that point in time. And therefore, it makes sense because I'm giving it to you then when it was in your shus. Or let's say the animal was no longer, when it was stolen, it wasn't stolen from the shomer's rishus. It was, he took it out one day for a spatzir, he took it out and it was in a public area. It wasn't his rishus, so how could he acquire it? See, if he could either acquire it when he gave it to him originally, or he can acquire it when it was in the shomer's rishus, his chatzer, his house could acquire it for him. But let's say the animal wasn't there at that point. So the second reason wouldn't work. You acquire it 1 minute before, right before it was stolen. How would he acquire it 1 minute before it was stolen if it wasn't his rishus? It wasn't his rishus. They couldn't. So the first reason he acquired from the time I gave it to you, that would work because he handed it to him right then. So, but in this, the second svara would not work on kaim v'agam, but the second svara has an advantage that it explains why he doesn't get the gizos and the blodos. Why? Because he gave it to him only right before it was stolen, after the animal gave birth, etc. All right, we'll pick him here tomorrow. It's Hashem from the two dots. Yom Tov, L'kulam. And don't hurt any animals.